Hello and welcome to the second part of our trio of podcasts where Steve and I, who's on the other end, are running through our top 5 favourite films and films that have inspired us. So firstly, hello Steve, and how are we keeping?
Yeah, good. Can't believe it's nearly 8 weeks since lockdown, but you know what? For me, it's whizzed by. I know it's obviously pretty dreadful, but yeah, it's gone pretty quickly. Weather's great. We're keeping ourselves busy. Happy days.
Yeah, and that's because you're spending every day sort of working on 1 acre of your large garden. Obviously, it's not acres, but you've got quite a garden, and given the weather's cracking,
lucky.
you're able to enjoy
Yeah,
it.
we're lucky. Yeah, we're lucky.
Which is a nice thing to do. So yeah, as everyone obviously would have realised, the previous podcasts, we did our first podcast, which is just sort of in conversation with myself and Steve, talking about our Fusion experiences. The most recent one that's then gone out is our films that we've ranked in 5th and 4th place. Not necessarily the best films, but our favourite films and films that have inspired us, and we're now going to follow that with our films that we've ranked in 3rd and 2nd place before we then finish with sort of a more in-depth look at what we would consider to be our favourite films. So without further ado, Steve, where are you coming in for your 3rd film?
Well, as per the previous podcast, these things are devilishly difficult. And I actually got it down to 2 films. And those 2, obviously, one of these is edges it. But the 2 films I thought about, because you're right, it's films that inspired me or changed me in terms of it stuck with me, and they were kind of like, yeah, almost life changing. The 2 films I got it down to for number 3 are Forbidden Planet and It's a Wonderful Life, which I know are massively different films. But
nice.
Yeah, but I've gone for Forbidden Planet, and for lots and lots of reasons. I remember watching it as a really young kid. I must have been maybe Austin, my son, 7 or 8. And it stuck with me. And even now, a lot of film historians look back on it as being one of the defining films, science fiction films ever made. It's a film made in the 1950s, and it's kind of reworking of The Tempest. But if you haven't seen it, I implore you to go and see it. And you sort of think, 1950 is going to be shoddy, I don't know, special effects, and it's just not going to look great. But it isn't. It's actually a really groundbreaking film. And it isn't the best film ever made, you're right, but it's a very, very good film that stands up even. I think it was the first film that used electronic music pretty much throughout the entire film. Special effects actually that are really good. The story is brilliant. And a very young Leslie Nielsen, who plays the lead in it. Walter Pidgeon, I think, is kind of the antagonist, if that's the right word for this film.
Yeah.
It wasn't an easy choice, but yeah, that's the one I've got it down to, and purely because, you know, what you said at the beginning, films you need to think. For me personally, did it affect me? Did it change how I viewed films? And that for me.
So when was the first time you saw it then? So obviously I don't know, you've seen it a few times. So when was the first time you saw the film, and what was the immediate emotion?
Well, I can remember this quite well. I was living in a place called Birchington, which I think actually is the biggest. I think it's the smallest village in Britain actually. Anyway. We lived there, and the BBC ran a science fiction series in the early 70s, so it's taking you back. So only 4 channels, and I'm probably on BBC 2. And at the same time, they were showing Star Trek, the original series. I remember that sort of dovetailed quite well. So I had all these weird films from the 50s and 60s, like, I don't know, the original Invasion of Body Snatchers, When Worlds Collide, This Island Earth, and Forbidden Planet, and they're all really good films, but that was the one that was a standout, and it was really quite affecting because it's such a brilliantly made film. So yeah, I can remember it really vividly, and as I, 4 channels to choose from, and no, 3 channels. It wasn't even channel 4 then. So yeah, it stuck with me, and I've got it on Blu-ray. I've seen it loads of times since, and you know, I could quite happily, when this podcast's finished, go back out and watch again. It's quite funny because we've got Disney Plus now, and I watched Star Wars, the Rise of Skywalker, obviously episode 9, the latest one everyone will know, And the truth is, it's not a great film. It's really well made, obviously, because the budget's extraordinary and it looks beautiful in the eye. But for whatever reason, J.J. Abrams or Disney execs had to answer to the story writers, whatever. It's really disjointed and it's not a great film. And yet you can go back 50 years and find a film like that hands down.
And then it works.
It works, yeah. It works. Such a brilliant film.
Because that's the thing with some films, and I think I've said it before, some people just watch a film for the sake of who's directed it or what franchise it's part of. And obviously, ultimately, that's what's making money. You look and go, the whole Avengers films where people have gone, they're going back and watching
but generally they're good.
Hulk films.
Generally, they're quite good.
No, they are good.
They are quite good. I mean, I watched... I was funny enough again because of Disney Plus. I watched Black Panther a few weeks ago. That's quite good, and then I watched Avengers Endgame or Infinity War and Endgame. And I actually thought they're really good films, really well made films.
It's the casting as well, though, isn't it? Which is a big part, I think.
Yeah, no, they're really good. They're really good films. But yeah, that's my third. What about yours?
Okay, so yeah, for me in third place, and it's weird you think adult type films. You said in the last podcast about a film which was better than the original, but then, and I'm being cryptic, the fourth film has recently come out, but this is a film that for me growing up inspired me and changed my childhood in a way, and it is the 1995 film Toy Story.
I was going to choose that. Funny enough, I was going to choose that. I really thought about it.
Yeah, for me, obviously, it was, and say John Lasseter, and you look and say the third one was ranked as, I think, one of the best things of the last decade. And of course, those that followed, although the second one may have lost its way a bit, the third one, everyone thinks, oh, it's amazing. But you look at the first one and the voice talent, the quality of, I mean, say John Lasseter, the Pixar projects he's written and been involved in. But it was just something else for me. And Tom Hanks, the iconic voice, and actually, for boys and girls, when you're playing with, I've got my nieces and nephews, you've got your son, and you see children, when you're playing with your toys and almost bringing them to life. And it was just all the old, I sound like I'm old now, but I'm a sucker for nostalgia. And you're seeing the Green Army Man where you'd look and go, yeah. And then remembering when the next latest toy come out and that being your Buzz Lightyear. And then just the narrative of how toys might feel if they did have a heart. And I just remember watching it at the cinema, and then I remember we'd get some of the little toys that would come out. I had the Buzz and the Woody, and obviously you see the Slinky Dog, and actually just the voice talent again when I was just looking into it. And Jim Varney, who done the Slinky Dog, who was the Ernest films. I mean, he passed away, I think it was in 2000 it was, and then you had the actor that done Rex, whose name evades me, but having passed away, but created such iconic characters. And I still think again, and what's always important for me, like you've said with Forbidden Planet, is films that stand the test of time. And 15 years later, for me, it still worked. You can sit and watch it, you can enjoy the story. And it's interesting that you would say that you almost put it in for yourself. What was your thinking of why you would look to include it?
Such a great film, and you're absolutely right about everything you say about that film. That was amazing, mind-blowing film when it came out. I'm trying to think who played Mr. Potato Head. He died a couple of years ago as well. And funnily enough, he was in Kelly's Heroes. He was like a stand-up comedian, really brilliant, so brilliant. Again, I've forgotten his name. But yeah, no, you don't need to say anything about
sorry, that was Don Rickles, wasn't it?
Don Rickles. Don Rickles,
sorry,
yeah, that's it, Don Rickles. There is actually, Don Rickles was on...
Sorry, I'm getting myself confused. No, it was worry. Wallace Shawn. I'm just looking now, actually, while doing this. Wallace Shawn played Rex. He's very much alive and kicking, but it was Don Rickles who...
Don Rickles, yeah. He was like Johnny Carson a few years ago, from the 80s or so, and he was just genius. Just watching him, he really... obvious voice in terms you can, like Tom Hanks, they've got really unique voices, haven't they? You can pick them out very easily.
Absolutely. And the thing which, when you see it, and then they've got all the artists, especially obviously your Tom Hanks and your Tim Allen, and then actually more so in Toy Story 4, when you've got, I think it's Annie Potts playing Bo Peep.
Yeah.
But then actually you look and go, I mean, it was an original story John Lasseter was involved in. And then I know a few years later, Hollywood came out with the Small Soldiers. And you look and still go, wow, in 1995, an original story based on your toys coming to life and them being the real heroes. And obviously we know animation, but I still just find that fascinating that, well, it took that long. And I know obviously probably was other versions of the story told, which I may not be aware of, but that narrative to take that long to make it into a Hollywood film, and it was sort of the start for Pixar in a way, wasn't it?
It was. So they'd made a couple of other films like Luxo Junior's one, and Tin Toy, I think, is another one. And most people probably know that Steve Jobs was involved in making Toy Story, one of the exec producers on it. So early days for Pixar. And I've got the box set. We could watch it now. I probably know it line for line. Great film, great choice. I've got no argument saying. Like I say, that was one I considered myself.
No, I think so, and it is. Again, you can look and think, oh, it has to be live action. And again, if we're going to go on, which I'd look to do, where we may look at foreign language films, which actually we've enjoyed, because it's not just a case of it being Hollywood. Our festivals are about independent filmmakers, and if I then had the choice to talk about documentaries, I'd look to go into that. But right now, these are just films which we've enjoyed as an audience member, and they've had an impact on us. So, where are you coming in at number 2? Because obviously, I know that you're a man of the sci-fi world, but are you going to shock me?
I
Where
am.
are you coming in at?
Yeah, he is. And the irony is, there's me slagging off Star Wars Episode 9. But actually, my number 2 choice is Star Wars, A New Hope, so Episode 4, that kicked it all off in 1977. Although it's true that The Empire Strikes Back is actually a better film, but that's not the reason the reason I'm choosing Star Wars Episode 4 is because it was groundbreaking for all sorts of reasons. Funny enough, I've just seen a 2.5-hour documentary, again on Disney Plus, about the making of the original trilogy. And the pain that George Lucas went through to make it, because he pretty much used his own money. Well, he got the green light from Fox, but it's worth watching. I think it's called something of Dreams, Field of Dreams, or something. Anyway, the documentary. But again, something that sticks in your mind. I remember going to see it as a kid. I remember walking to the cinema. I was absolutely packed. We got in there a little bit late, which was the sequence where the droids had landed on Tatooine. So I couldn't actually get to my seat because that's quite a dark sequence, because it's like a night shoot. So I'd sit on the steps between the rows and wait for the a lit part of the film to come on, which did. And I remember just being totally amazed by it, blown away by it. It's just hadn't seen anything like it before. I'd probably seen 2001 before that, or maybe not. Maybe I hadn't seen 2001, but it was a stunning film, and. I remember I probably went to see it 7 or 8 times as a kid. And again, as I say this, I'm suddenly thinking, oh God, why didn't I choose Superman the movie? Again, that was a life changer. But no, it has to be Star Wars.
Oh, Superman! This is Christopher Reeve Superman. Is that the one?
The original. One? Yeah, the original. Yeah, the first one. But I think anyone that's seen the original Star Wars in the cinema, sort of similar age to me, will know. I mean, whether you're a Star Wars fan or not, but it was. Brilliantly made. To be honest with you, it was cowboys and Indians in space. I mean, it's black hats, white hats. It kind of is. It's just, I don't know. Was there that famous a man of 1,000 faces or something? Or no? There's only 7 or 8. Is that right? There's only 7 or 8 stories that are told in cinema, I think. Or so you probably know this better than me. So I know it's just a version of that. But yeah, it was an incredible film. So many genius touches to it. Casting of Alec Guinness, who hated making it, but made more money from that film than all of his other films put together, because he was one of the first, if not the first, to have this amazing. He'd done a percentage, and everyone was saying, "Oh, you're mad," and but he done it because he didn't think he was going to do anything. He just thought, "Oh, sorry, I'll do it as a risk," and he made an absolute fortune from that. But anyway, although he hated the character, the thing with the Force. George Lucas to introduce that, the character
arc. The fact that 2 days ago it's so weird that they then celebrate a day of the year, May the 4th. And you look, and obviously again, potentially at the end of our next podcast, because I know that the sci-fi genre, and I'd like to maybe discuss that in more detail, because I have a feeling that no doubt your number one
It will
film
be a
is
sci-fi film.
it's going to be a
It's gonna be a
sci-fi
sci-fi.
film of sorts, of course. Yeah, just keen to find out how that sort of era and genre of film has shaped you, but definitely with Star Wars, and again the characters and the careers, and you look and think, obviously, Natalie Portman and Carrie Fisher, obviously, who passed away, and these iconic people that have created these roles, and they'll forever be associated with those characters.
Star Wars.
And
Yeah, they are.
yeah,
Yeah, they are. And the amusingly, I remember again this documentary said it made mega stars of all the three main stars in it, which was obviously Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, and Harrison Ford. That's not entirely true, because actually Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher didn't. Okay, I know she was in When Harry Met Sally, and he was in a couple of other things. He actually went on to do a lot of voice work. I think he was the Joker in the Batman animated films. Obviously, he was well known because Star Wars, everyone knew who he was. But the meteoric one really was Harrison Ford, because from that he went on to do the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Witness, Working Girl, and all sorts of films that he'd done after that. So really, he's Patriot Games, I think, is another one that he'd done. So he was one of the mega career. But I mean, they've all done really well out of it. But yeah, it's such a defining film that I think a lot of people place it. Not the best film ever made, but of its time and what it did, and it massively changed the way people looked at filmmaking, because it made so much frigging money. Yeah, so yeah, that's the reasons behind it. I mean, everyone knows it's an iconic film, and I still think now, looking back, what it done for cinema was incredible. So, okay, reveal it then, Dan. You're number two.
okay, number two for me, and again, it could have potentially been actually an option for my top film, but that's been taken by another, is The Prestige by Christopher Nolan.
What a film.
I'm a massive fan of magic anyway, and I'm a massive fan of Christian Bale, and I love Nolan from watching. He'd done a short film years ago called Following, followed by Memento, which was just a wonderful way to tell a story. And again, it came out, I think it was 2006 or 8, I can't actually fully remember now. I say it's my second film, but the years, because it came out at the same time as The Illusionist, which was then similar back in 1998 when Deep Impact came out of Armageddon. And you often see how two films come out, and both of them were good in their own right. But for me, The Prestige, the setting, and sort of, again, it's telling you, it's going to play a trick on you. I've seen it genuinely. I watched it the other day actually with a partner, and it was Sarah's first time watching it, and it was like, oh, actually, no, I'm really enjoying this. And the runtime, yes, it's just over 2 hours in it at times, but once you've watched it the first time, you think, oh, is that it now? I'm now, and obviously not going to try and give away any secrets, but oh, now I know it. But actually, I think when I watched it, it must have been about my 7th or 8th time, and you still just see new things that you'd missed beforehand, because you've been able to...
Yeah, it's a brilliant film.
Yeah, from the start of where it's like the pledge, the turn, the prestige, and are you watching closely, which is sort of the monologue that Michael Caine opens up with. And then the sort of the two rivals of Bale and Hugh Jackman's characters, and then actually bringing Tesla into it as well, the late great David Bowie. And I think just ultimately, I've always been captivated by films that leave something on the audience. For example, Usual Suspects, and that's giving it away that that's not going to be my number one film, but actually, because I was looking for sort of almost comparables, and when you get to the end of The Usual Suspects, and there's that final oh my god moment where you've been watching a whole film and then bang, it sort of hits you. And I love films like that where you are left with a twist. So do you remember, obviously, when you first saw The Prestige, what was sort of your...
Yeah, I did. I do. It's a friend of mine, he had The Prestige and Old Boy, which again, you could argue, the original Old Boy, is one of the, my favourite films. This is the trouble film.
Not the Josh Brolin one.
No, the Josh Brolin one. It's okay, the Josh Brolin one. The sequence where he's on the football pitch, when he kicks the crap out of those boys, I just think was just awful. I mean, it was just...
Yeah.
I know the original Old Boy is really violent. Obviously, everyone remembers the lift scene, but I just thought it was unnecessary, and it just didn't need to be remade. I mean, Christ, what are they going to do next? Train to Busan or something? You know, I just hate it when they do this. They remake films that just don't need to be done. It's just like they're running out of ideas. But no, I do remember where I was when I saw it. I was around a friend's house, and yeah, Old Boy and The Prestige. Funny enough, I still think The Prestige is his best film. I know he's got a new film apparently coming out in September, Nolan. I don't know anything about it, but
Tenet, I think it was.
Tenet.
Yeah, well, that's,
do you know what it's about?
Yeah.
I don't know anything about it.
I don't actually know. I mean, I'd only seen, again, we've been sort of embroiled in our little fusion world in terms of how we are adapting and changing to the whole COVID-19 and sort of the pandemic and lockdown situation. But I've seen that, and again, I've been looking at Hollywood and how this is impacting the release of films. And Fast 9, they've immediately said, no, we'll move to May. And then there's now a desire for content and perhaps the opportunity for independent filmmakers to, if there was the right channels, but often you look and go, well, Netflix are making their own content. Right now, they can't make their own content, and there's a lot of quality stuff that you and I have seen that could be getting seen, and some stories. I mean, we've seen some incredible narratives and documentaries or shorts, and we know Film Do, our festival partners, they've got a great curation of projects on their site. So actually, as much as, again, we're talking Hollywood, whether it is your Star Wars and Jaws, and obviously looking at Stand By Me, Toy Story, and here
Jaws.
And
it's the problem. It's endless. You know, so many good films, and suddenly you mentioned a couple, and I was like, yeah, shit, actually, they're really good films.
They are. They're so easy to forget, though. Or not. They're not forget. It's just when there's so many films that do exist.
It really makes it very, very difficult to choose. You know what your favourite films are, and it's devilishly hard. And you know, I did struggle, but I think you've just got to be honest. And getting back to what you said, it's not necessarily the best films that have ever been made. I mean, you're talking about Citizen Kane, for instance.
Oh yeah, no, we're not looking at. We're not taking an IMDb list. I mean, I've known people that have gone, on the IMDb top 250 films. Yeah, of course, there's amazing films that are on there. One of mine, which potentially, again, whether or not I bring up, could have been Little Miss Sunshine. Absolutely love that film. It's a fun film. Yeah. It's different. It takes you to a different place too. But then everyone thinks, Eternal Sunshine. They're good stories in their own rights, but for me, you look and go, okay, yeah, Stand By Me, The Matrix, we could just come in with Toy Story, and now The Prestige, and then the films that you've listed off. I can't remember where you come in with fifth, believe it. So I know Jaws was your fourth, and what was number 5?
Blade Runner. I can't remember. Was it Blade Runner?
Of course it was. Yeah, of course it was. And again, you look at those films and iconic, and obviously they're the sort of ones which you'll have your posters for in your rooms, etc. But these are just films which have had an impact, and we always say film is subjective, and I'm sure everyone else will go, yeah, that's good, but for me I'd be Shawshank or XYZ, and their reasons for it. I remember when I saw that film and I'd never seen Mad Max, like even Fury Road, which, although it's a film of recent cinema, yeah, people look and go, it's amazing. Or whether it's The Revenant, I'd probably look and go, actually, Wolf of Wall Street, just from a performance point of view of DiCaprio, and the story
I just thought that was brilliant. That was the funniest comedy almost I'd ever seen, which sounds a bit odd, but some of the comedic parts in that, the bit of the Lamborghini, for instance, it just absolutely, I was wetting myself because it was exactly how blokes do it. They're like, I was pissed, everything must have been perfect. And then actually in reality, you're just making a dick of yourself.
It's the phone conversations as well. It's when he's there going, sounds fair enough. And the whole dialogue, etc. So again, that's a great film. And I definitely think that we'll look to maybe go in with our foreign films, and the chances are there may be a few that cross over. Just have a look, because it's broadening our fusion of cinema. But I think so. The next plan for us is to then just reveal, because we know you'll all be on the edge of your seats, our number one favourite films. And we'll just do that as a standalone podcast, where we might just spend a few more moments sort of just discussing it. And then just obviously round it off with a chat. But thank you very much for listening, and we hope to have your ears joining us again soon.
Yeah, brilliant. Cheers for that, Dan. And yeah, thanks to all thousands and thousands or 5 people listening. Cheers.
Cheers. Goodbye.
Bye.